Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 485, The Last Days of Disco, directed by Whit Stillman, 1998. Let's see, the film itself, it's set in the very early 80s, and as the title implies, this is during the height of the disco nightclub craze. And while it has a fairly sizable ensemble piece, at the heart of it are these two friends slash enemies slash roommates named Charlotte and Alice. Alice played by Chloe Sevigny and Charlotte played by Kate Beckinsale. By day they work as assistants in a publishing house, and at night they go to this particular nightclub to try to find some fun and entertainment and romance and all those things. And so that's really what it is. Again, there's other things that happen, and it's motivated by characters and circumstances, and it plays pretty naturally. It doesn't feel completely contrived. It's all rooted in it's rooted in the characters and it's rooted in the space. Admittedly, now Whit Stillman has only done 4 films in his career. In fact, the gap between this one and his most recent one, Damsels in Distress, is about 14 years or so. So it's really. I mean, on the one hand, he hasn't done a whole lot, and the only other film of his that I haven't seen is Barcelona. But in looking at his filmography, I find this one to be the weakest one comparatively, and I think it has to do with that there is a lot going on. It feels slightly more plot heavy than character heavy, and though to say Metropolitan also has an ensemble, but I think the reason why it worked is that it is fairly self-contained in the space. It's pretty much this one little area of Manhattan, and it's all in their houses, and it's done in this small period of time, whereas this one's a little bit bigger. It's about a couple of months or so. Actually, no, I think it's supposed to be a year. Over the span of a year, and the characters themselves that are part of this vaguely connected group, they have different backgrounds and different occupations, and there's different things that happen to them. So there's a lot of twists and turns here and there. But it's not to say that it's a bad piece, but far from it. And it certainly carries a lot of the trademarks that you find in Whit Stillman's films, namely the characters that are not afraid to be verbose. They're not afraid to be witty. There's plenty of sharp lines in there, and not afraid of being themselves, and kind of. And they're mostly young characters, and so and by young I mean in their 20s, and it's all the fresh-eyed youth coming out of school and trying to start their lives, and so it has that trademark. And so in that sense, looking at that, it kind of reminds me of the way that I initially felt with some of Wes Anderson's films. So in this basis of comparison, Metropolitan was my Rushmore, and then I guess Last Days of Disco is kind of my Life Aquatic or The Royal Tenenbaums. I really liked Damsels in Distress when it came out. Again, I think it's just because the geography and the story was more tightly focused. It didn't feel like it was this big spread. But again, it's not a bad piece at all. I still enjoy it. It's just I don't enjoy it as much in his filmography compared to, say, Metropolitan. or even damsels in distress. And also to the film's credit, now Whit Stillman had this idea prior to all this happening, but when he finally was able to get it made, he was under a certain pressure to finish it before another film that was also set in the disco era, 54, came out. And it was sort of part of a, there was a, for a while, there was a trend in films to have a lot of like 70s revivalism, as it were, or lots of throwbacks to disco and trying to romanticize that life and or to showcase its once glamour, perhaps also its tragedy as well, but certainly trying to. It was a trend. And while you could accuse that film of following that trend, but you can't really accuse of slavishly copying it, because it's still in the end a film that Whit Stillman made. It has his writing, it has his approach, it has his themes. So in other words, it's a work where it's a work that demonstrates how you can inadvertently be part of a particular popular trend, but you can still make something that stands out and holds on its own and not is not necessarily a part of that trend. And so and in the end it kind of won out because it was actually better reviewed than 54 was. So I would say that if I think I still hold that Metropolitan is probably the best introduction into Whit Stillman, and if you like that, there's no doubt that you probably like his other films, but maybe in some ways it probably is maybe it's an easier to take introduction because there is the diversity of characters and that there's a bit of a variety to it, so maybe that would be the best introduction, but again, this is all in the end. This is all my opinion and such. So, but yeah, the last days of disco, and until next time, take care.